Welcome back to my channel. Dollar Tree has all of their Christmas stuff out, and in this video I'm going to use my Cricut machine to DIY and personalize these 9 items. I had so much fun putting this together. These projects make great gifts, and the best part is they are inexpensive to put together. I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know if you're making any Dollar Tree Christmas projects this year. To start off, I'm going to personalize these stockings. I'm going to add my 3 kids' names on the top white fuzzy part. They had a few different design options to choose from, but I just love the sweater design on these. I already have nicer stockings hanging on our fireplace, but I thought these would be good for Santa to put stocking presents inside and just have it laying with the rest of the presents. Now let's head over to Cricut Design Space. First, I'm going to grab the font that I'm using. The font is called Christmas Beautiful, and I found this on Creative Fabrica. I'll link all the fonts and SVGs down in the description box. I'm mainly using Creative Fabrica and Cricut Design Space images. I pay for both of those memberships, so that's where I get the majority of what I use. I'm going to type in my kids' names. This font is so pretty. I love it. The stocking is 3 inches tall, so I think I'm going to do about 1.5 inches for the height. Their names are about the same size, but I do have a nice little hack for this. So I'm going to go to my height and make it 1.5 inches. And then what I actually like to do for the other 2 is grab the font size instead of doing the height. So the font size is 47.71. I'll just copy it. I'll hit Command C on my keyboard. Then I'll select Josh and I will paste that and hit Command V on my keyboard. It makes it just a little under 1.5 inches, and I'll do the same for Emmy's. When you do the font size, it makes it all look uniform. It doesn't really make too much of a difference with their names, but if you have something that's really long, then it makes it all look about the same. Now I'll click Make It. This is HTV, so I'm going to mirror my design. I'm also using scrap vinyl, which is really nice. I love projects like these that use up my scrap vinyl. I'm using Caesar HTV, but I'm just going to use Everyday Iron-On for my cut setting, and that usually works really well. I place my HTV shiny side down or carrier sheet down. Then the Cricut will cut out the fonts. Then I remove the vinyl from the mat and weed out all the excess vinyl. And like I said, I'm using scrap vinyl here. I keep it in a file system, and it just makes this such an inexpensive project. I'm using my Easy Press Mini for this. This is a great project for the Mini. I set it to the medium setting. I always like to preheat my blank before I add my vinyl, so that is what I'm doing here. I line up the first name, then I take my measuring tape and make sure I have the same distance on each side, and it was about 2 inches, so it was perfect. I place my Teflon sheet on top and run my Easy Press Mini over it for 25 seconds in constant motion. I wasn't sure what the material was made out of, but on Cricut's heat guide, I feel like the majority of the time it says to do 25 seconds, so that's what I did. I decided to let that cool down just a little bit, and I went ahead and made the other 2 stockings the same exact way. When I remove the carrier sheet, I just make sure to do it slowly just to make sure the vinyl adhered well. It looked like everything did, but if it didn't, all you have to do is place the Teflon sheet back on top and run the Easy Press Mini over it just a little bit longer. Here's how these turned out. I love the pattern on the stockings, and I also just really love the font. It's so Christmassy. I love being able to personalize with the Cricut. I also found the little ribbon on the inside that you can hang these up with. I found this red charger plate at the Dollar Tree, and I thought the color was so beautiful. You can really do a lot with this, but I am going to make a cookies for Santa tray for Christmas Eve. Just a side note, the plate says it's for decorative uses only, and vinyl is definitely not food safe, so don't eat the food that you put on this. Or I was thinking if you put the cookies on the tray, you could wrap it up in saran wrap so that it doesn't touch any part of the plate or the vinyl. I'm going to upload my SVG. These Santa plates have been so popular for a very long time. 4 years ago, I made one and made a YouTube video on it. I will leave a link for that down below. What I did for that one was I used a clear plate and I reversed the vinyl, and I used a Dollar Tree plate. I'm going to grab a guide and make it the size of my plate. I measure just the inside of the plate where the vinyl is going to be going, and it's 8 inches. I'll change the operation type to a guide, and I will change this to 8 inches. I'm also going to right click and send this to the back. Now I'm just going to make this about the same size as this plate. I'm going to center this. I'll just highlight over both of these. I'll go to Align Center just to make sure it looks good. As you can see, there's tons of layers for this, so I need to attach it all together. Right now it's all grouped together, so all I have to do is select Attach. Now I can click Make It. The snowflakes in here are pretty tiny, so I am actually going to select the washi tape setting. If I have any intricate cuts, I like to do that instead of the vinyl setting. I'm using permanent vinyl, and it's Starcraft brand. I buy this from 143vinyl.com. I'm an affiliate for them, and I just love their website. This vinyl is amazing. Another good permanent vinyl is Oracal 651, and you can pick that up at Michael's, which is really nice. So I was struggling to weed this vinyl. I should have just done the vinyl setting. Usually the washi tape setting just always works really well for me, but this time it was just a struggle to weed it. So it kind of depends on your blade and things like that, but I was able to slowly weed this out. For tiny pieces inside the letters, I love using a pen tool. I'll link it in my description box. It's amazing and it's pretty cheap. I think it's like $6 or $7. I decided to test out my transfer tape first before adding my vinyl, just to make sure it didn't pick up any like paint or whatever's on this. I probably had too big of a transfer tape, but it didn't take any off, so it's good to use. Before adding the vinyl, I just cleaned the plate with rubbing alcohol. It was kind of dirty just from sitting in the store, so the vinyl just doesn't stick to dirt as well, so it's always good to use rubbing alcohol to clean off your surface. Here I'm just cutting off a piece of transfer tape. I use the Caesar brand transfer tape, and oh my gosh, this is the best. I have searched everywhere for a good transfer tape. I spent a couple years struggling to find one. This one's clear. It's not too sticky, but sticky enough to pick up the vinyl, and it has the grid lines. So I'll leave a link down for this down in my description box if you're looking for a good one. Next, I just center this on the plate. I probably could have made it just a tiny bit bigger, but I still think it's fine. I lost the E when I was removing the transfer tape, so I just go back in and set that down. Also, when I was weeding, I lost the dot to the I for milk and the center of the R, so I actually just cut that back out in Cricut Design Space. I just deleted everything except those two little pieces, then placed it down with the tweezers. Here's how the plate turned out. I just love the design for this. I probably wouldn't sell this just because it's not food safe, even though you could put a disclaimer on there. I also just recently saw online somebody use the exact same red saucer plate for their cookies for Santa. It looked so similar, but a lot of times that happens where we just all get the same ideas for Cricut blanks. But this was so much fun to make, and I'm excited to use this on Christmas Eve with my kids. For my next project, I'm going to be adding vinyl to this wine bottle bag. They had this one and a Santa one. This would make an excellent gift if you're giving a wine bottle. You can make it extra special by personalizing this however you want to. I was going to add a name to the top part, but once you close it, it gets kind of scrunched up, so I decided to do just the main part of the bag. I also closed it up so I can help figure out what size I want my design to be. I'll grab my SVG for this one. I had a few different ones selected, but I'm going to do this first one. I also imported a picture into Cricut Design Space. I like to do this sometimes to kind of get a visual of how it's going to look, so I'll kind of show you how I do that. I'm going to be putting this on the front. I just need to right click and send this to the back. And I'm going to make the color white. It's not letting me change the color because it's grouped together and there's lots of layers. I want this all to be attached, so I'm just going to click attach. Now it'll let me change the color, and I will change it to white. I add my vinyl to the mat. I place it carrier side down, and I always like to throw the whole roll on there. To me, it makes it so much easier than trying to measure and cut it out. But after that, I just weed out my design. I'm using the Easy Press Mini again, and I basically follow the same steps as the stocking. I do like to tighten the bag just to make sure the vinyl's not over a part that's going to be like bent. Once I removed the carrier sheet, I noticed that you can see like the cut lines, especially with the K there, but there was a couple other spots too. It might be really hard to see it, but that is because I just attached the words and I didn't weld or unite them. So when you're doing fonts, make sure to weld or unite. This is just such a fun way to personalize a gift. You can really put anything that you want on here. You can even put to and from with vinyl on it, but this might be one of my favorites so far. I really like how it turned out. Next, I'm going to personalize this mug. It's pretty big, so I don't know if it's meant for like those soup mugs or just like a regular mug, but I loved the red color. It just looked so Christmassy to me. I'll upload my design. I thought this was so cute. I'm just going to make it one color though. So what I'm going to do is come down to combine and I'll select unite. I really don't have to change the color because I'm just using one vinyl sheet, but sometimes I like to have it kind of match up. So I am doing this gold color. I'm going to make it 3.4 inches for the width, and that makes it 1.75 for the height. Now I'll click make it. I'll show you the vinyl I'm using for this in just a second, but the setting I'm using is holographic vinyl. I'm using Tech Rep's gold chrome vinyl. This vinyl is so beautiful and it's just perfect for Christmas time. This design is pretty tiny and it also has some thin pieces to it, but I was really impressed. It weeded out so well. I add rubbing alcohol to the mug, and this really does make a big difference in the longevity of your vinyl. I save my transfer tape scraps as well, so I just pick from one of those for my vinyl. Using transfer tape, I add the vinyl to the mug. I also never add anything like a sealant over my vinyl because it is permanent. Permanent vinyl should last several years, and some things to help it last is using that rubbing alcohol. You also want to use good quality vinyl, and you want to wait for the vinyl to cure on the mug for at least 24 hours, so before getting it wet. You also need to hand wash this, and this has tiny little stars on it, and that's the only time I've ever really struggled with permanent vinyl, but I just like to lightly wash it with soap and water. Look how beautiful this is. It would make such a great gift if you put like candy, hot chocolate, or a gift card in there. I just think it turned out so pretty. I found these burlap pillowcase covers at the Dollar Tree. They had 4 different designs, I believe, and they're a good size, 15.48 inches. For just $1.25, these are a really good deal, I feel like. Here's what the design looks like on the front, and it is completely blank on the back, which is really exciting because you can add heat transfer vinyl to the back, which is what I'm going to do, and you can personalize it however you like, which is really fun. This can be a reversible pillow, or you can just keep it on the side that you put the HTV on. I'll grab my 2 SVGs. I found both of these on Creative Fabrica, and I just thought they were super cute. Now I'm going to grab a guide and make it the size of my pillowcases. The size is 15.748 inches. I'll make that into a guide. Then I'll hit Command D to make a separate one. I'm just going to right click and send these to the back. And now I can figure out my sizing for my images. Actually, these pillowcases are really big, so I'm just going to make my images the max width that I can cut with the Cricut Maker, and that is 11.5 inches for the width. And for this one, I'll make it 11.5. That looks good. They are 2 different color reds, so I am going to make them the same color. Also, I need to go in and unite or weld these together, so I'll just come down and I'm just going to select weld. And then it looks like the Santa doesn't need to be welded together at all. So now I can just click make it. Since this is about 15 inches for the length, I do need my big mat, and I'm using a roll of HTV. I'm going to mirror both of my designs, and then I'll hit continue. I'll choose everyday iron-on for my cut setting. I add my vinyl roll to the mat, and my Cricut will cut it out. If you are making this Santa, it did take a long time to cut because it had all these tiny little cuts, but thankfully since it's HTV, it cuts it pretty well. It does kind of waste some vinyl since it only has those little pieces, but the design is really cool. Here's what the two designs look like after they're weeded out. Then I just set my Cricut Easy Press 2 to 315 degrees at 30 seconds. I place a Teflon sheet inside the pillowcase just in case that ink or whatever it is on that one side would bleed through because of the heat. Then I preheat the burlap bag. This is really nice too because it gets out all of those wrinkles. Since this design is so big, I have to press it in two different pieces, and I'm using my large Cricut Easy Press, but I just do the top half first. Once that is done with the 30 seconds, I will do the bottom part. I let that one cool down and move on to the next one. I follow the exact same steps for this one. Started to remove the carrier sheet, and on the edges it just wasn't totally stuck down. I think my heat plate just didn't get there, so I just ran my Easy Press Mini around the edge of both designs, and that worked really well. I bought two 18 by 18 inch pillow inserts from Amazon. You can use pillow stuffing as well, and I already have it in the Santa one, and I'm just going to add it to this other one. It seems like it's going to be too big, but that is the correct size. You want to go a couple inches bigger than the pillowcase cover. Here's how these turned out. I think they look so cute. I really love the designs for the HTV. I would definitely recommend picking these up from the Dollar Tree. Next, I'm going to personalize one of the Dollar Tree elves. They have girl and boy ones. These have been popular for years. I actually posted a video 5 years ago personalizing these, so I can link that video down below. I used a hair straightener to add the vinyl because the Easy Press Minis weren't around back then. I'm going to use the same font and snowflake, and I'm making this for my 1-year-old. I'm also going to show you how to use your Cricut machine and cardstock to package the elf. I already have the snowflake uploaded. This is just an image from Cricut Design Space. I'm going to grab the box template. I downloaded this from Creative Fabrica. It's just a standard box. It wasn't specifically for the elf, but it works really well for this. I'm also going to grab my text. I'm using Babass New. I'm going to type in my daughter's name, and I want to change it to white. I'm going to have the snowflake and Emmy be white. I'll also just size both of these really quickly. Emmy is going to be 2 inches for the width, and the snowflake is going to be 1 inch. Now for the template, it's set to basically 11.5, which will be good. It looks like it's just the black piece, but if you look in the layers panel, it does have the score lines in here, which is really nice. What I'm going to do is change the black piece to red, and the score lines, I'm going to move it up so you can see it. These lines are actually set to a cut. We need to change it to a score. It does look like these two layers are only grouped together. To keep the score lines in place, I need to click attach. The last thing I want to do is grab a shape so that I can cut acetate out. I'll glue that right in front of the opening here. I'm just going to unlock this, and I just want to make it a little bit bigger. That looks good, just like that. I just want to have enough space so that I can glue this to the cardstock. Now that I have everything, I can click Make It. I want to switch this to 8.5 by 11. I also want to do the same for this one. For this one, I have to use my 12 by 24 inch mat. I do need to mirror the white since it's HTV, and I'll hit Continue. I'll follow the order on the screen. First, I'm going to set my everyday iron on. When it goes to this, I will choose acetate, and when it goes to this, I will choose medium cardstock. It'll tell me to score first, then it'll cut, and I'll show you over on my Cricut what that looks like. It'll cut out the HTV first, then it'll move on to the acetate. I just used the acetate setting for this, and it does have a protective film over both sides. Next, the Cricut will cut the cardstock. I'm using a 12 by 12 65-pound sheet. You want it to be at least 65 pounds, otherwise the box will be too flimsy. First, I'm adding my scoring wheel to the maker. If you have an Explorer, you can use the scoring stylus, and the Cricut will score those lines. After that, I will switch it back to the fine point blade, and it will cut out the rest. Before I make the box, I am going to add the HTV to the elf. I first just weed out my vinyl, then I am going to use my Easy Press Mini again, and I preheat the area. If you don't have an Easy Press Mini, I would highly recommend it. I use it all the time, and it's really one of my favorite Cricut products. I didn't actually time how long I put my Easy Press Mini over it. I kind of just did what looked good, and I feel like you can kind of tell because you can see the material through the vinyl. She is so adorable. You can even add a year on the foot and give it as like a baby gift. For the box, I'm going to add the acetate first. I just take my Barely Art glue and run it along the edge, then place the acetate over that. You want to glue it on the inside so when you turn it around, you can't see the glue at all. Next, I start folding those score lines. I do everything but the top score lines. There's a little flap on the edge that I add glue to. I feel like you could use hot glue as well if you don't have something like this Barely Art glue. Then I hold it down. I was struggling to get the centerpiece, so I ended up just laying this flat and pressing all of it down. Here I just fold the bottom pieces together. I didn't glue it, but you might want to glue it so that it secures it just a little bit better, but I felt like it looked fine. Now I'm ready to add my elf. Once she's in there, I just fold the top pieces together. Here's how it turned out. This is such a cute way to package it if you are giving it as a gift. I found these gift bags at the Dollar Tree. It comes in a 3-pack, and I thought it would be really fun to have the Cricut draw on the gift bags little Christmas images. The bag is 10 inches by 7 inches. It does have a little spot where the handle goes down, so I don't want the Cricut to draw over that. Before I go into Cricut Design Space, I wanted to show you a mistake. I had placed my gift bag in the center of the mat, and when I went to load it into the Cricut machine, it tried to pull the whole mat through, and the handles were just too big, and it got stuck. You can hear it here. Thankfully, my machine didn't break, but I will go into Cricut Design Space and show you how I set it up the correct way. I'm going to find my designs first, and I'm using Cricut images. I am going to type in Christmas. I'll click on Operation Type and hit Draw Only. Makes it easier to find one that works. I want one of these letters. For some reason, it's not showing up with more, so I am going to View Image Sets, and I'm going to find an M. I'll select that one, then go back to images. I am going to search for ornaments, and I'll choose this one. I'll add both of these to the canvas. Since they were draw, they're already set to pen, and I'm also using black pen, so I'm going to keep it exactly like that. Now I'll go to shapes, and I want to make a guide. This is 7 by 10 inches. Now I'm just going to size both of these in here. I want it to be in the bottom part since it does have the handle towards the top. Okay, that looks good for the M. Now I'll just size this one. Okay, that looks great. I'll click Make It. Now this step is really important. I'm going to be putting my design towards the bottom of the mat since I will be putting my bag down here. I also want to put it directly in the center. Also, I will be putting the bag upside down, so I need to turn the image first. I hit Shift on my keyboard before I start turning it. I'll just bring this down. The center is at the 6, and I want the top to be at the 5. I'm looking at these lines also to make sure it's in the center. I'm just doing the best I can. It might not be perfect. For the M, I'll do the same thing. It makes you select a material even though it's not cutting, so I just choose a random one. I place it right at the 5 line and I make sure it's right in center of the mat. Then I add painter's tape down because I had another issue that I didn't show. I tried having it draw and the bag fell off the mat. So you either want to use a strong grip mat or the tape. I add my pen into clamp A, then I load my mat into the machine, and as you can see, it stops right before the handle gets to the bar, so it works out doing it this way. Cricut will draw the design. I feel like this is one of the most underrated Cricut feature is the pen. There's so many fun uses for it. I feel like I should do a video of a whole bunch of ideas of what to do with the Cricut pens. As I was removing the tape, it ripped a little bit on one side, so you probably don't want to use this tape. The gift bag is made of paper, so I would just recommend using your strong grip mat. Next, I add my other bag and have the Cricut draw it out. I sped it up a ton, and once this is done, I will show you how these look. My strong grip mats are in such bad shape that I ended up using the tape again, and I tried to carefully remove it, and I feel like it did a little bit better. Here's how the gift bags turned out. It's fun because you can personalize it however you want. I play bunco with some neighbors and we have a gift exchange soon, so I might draw some dice on a bag and I think it'd be really fun. Next, I'm going to personalize these little containers. These are Christmas bells. I always see these at the Dollar Tree and think it's a good blank for the Cricut, but always struggle to come up with something. But what I'm going to do with these is add my kids' names onto them and put candy in it and put it in their Christmas stockings. I'll grab my font for this one. It's called This Christmas. This was also a Creative Fabrica find, and it's kind of similar to the stocking ones, but I actually think I like this one a little bit better. It's really cool. I'll just type in my kids' names really quickly. Isn't this font super neat? I am going to size Quinn, and I'm going to make the font 1.5 inches. I'm going to take my font size and copy it and make Josh and Emmy the same font size. Okay, I'll click Make It. I like to separate this sometimes a little bit. It makes it easier to cut in between the letters. I'll select holographic vinyl for my cut setting. I'm using the Tech Rep vinyl again because it is just too pretty not to use it. I got a little carried away with weeding the vinyl and I lost the S, but thankfully I salvaged it and added it back in. I use rubbing alcohol to clean the containers, then I add my vinyl on top of those. Also, this is just another really good Christmas font. I'm just happy that I've been finding some good ones this year. Now I'm adding Hershey Kisses to these, and sorry that my video is blurry here. My 1-year-old got a hold of my camera and her fingers were touching the lens. Here's how these turned out. So fun to add to stockings. You can give it as like teacher gifts and things like that too. I found these chair covers this year and thought they would be really fun to personalize. I tried adding them to my dining room chairs and they were too small. It didn't fit. So pay attention to the dimensions on there to make sure it fits your chairs. But we have a kids table. It's kind of a medium-sized table in their toy room, so I'm going to add these to those chairs. I already have my Santa image uploaded. I am using a Cricut Design Space image. What I'm going to do is hit ungroup and move this around a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do is get rid of this white. I'll just delete it. I want to slice the red out of the brown, so I am just going to select that in the layers panel. I'll come down here and hit slice. I'm going to come up to my layers panel and delete my slice results. I'm going to switch this to white. The reason why I sliced it out like that is because right here where it's supposed to be red, that is where it's going to be cut and the material will show through and the material is red. So hopefully that makes sense. Now for these pieces, I want the gloves to be black and his face to still be that peach color. So I'm going to duplicate this because it's only one layer. And what I'm going to do is contour. I'm going to contour the face out of this one. And for this one, I will contour the hands or the gloves. I'm going to bring the gloves back over the Santa, and the face, I'm going to bring it back over as well. And actually, I need to bring Santa down to the bottom. I think I'll just bring everything back in, actually. I want to attach the gloves and the eyes, so I'll hit Shift on my keyboard to select the eyes, then I'll come down here and select Attach. Now I should have all of my pieces. You can see the black, the white, the peach, the brown, and the pink. So it's going to be a lot of different colors. Now I'll size this. I'm going to make it about 10.9 inches. I'm making 2 of these Santas, but I'm going to duplicate it in the Make It screen, and I'll show you how I do that in a second. But I'm just going to grab my font for both of my kids. I'm using Absolute Blonde. I'll type in Josh, then I'll type in Quinn and size it. The size is 1.5 for the height. The Santa will be on the main part of the cover, and there's a little white area that the names will be on. I'm in the Make It screen. I am going to switch my project copies to 2, and I'll hit apply. It's going to bring it onto 2 different whites. I'm going to mirror these. Just making sure I go in and mirror everything. I realized for the names that I don't need 2 of these, so I'm just going to hide these bottom 2. I'll just click on the 3 dots and hit hide selected. It's kind of nice to be able to do this really easily. Okay, now I'll hit continue. I'm going to select everyday iron-on and use it for all of these, and I will just follow which colors it says to do first. The Cricut will cut out all the different colors. I just follow the steps that are on the Cricut screen. Once that's done, I go through and weed out all of the vinyl. I decided to cut out the gloves so that I can save a little bit vinyl too. I just didn't want to waste that middle space there. I hate doing that. I have my easy press set to 315 at 30 seconds. When layering HTV, I like to lay everything down first. That way I can figure out the order of what I want to press. When you're layering, you don't want the 2 carrier sheets overlapping, so I kind of try to see which ones overlap and which ones don't. I preheat the material first, then I press the white part of the Santa. The material was kind of bending underneath it, so I try to make sure it was nice and flat also. I only press it for about 15 seconds, which is half the time, since I'm going to be doing multiple presses. Next, I add his face and gloves and press it for about 15 seconds. After that, I add his eyes and nose. I wasn't able to add the eyebrows because the carrier sheet was going over the eyes, but I press these 2, then I do one last press for the eyebrows. Then I press Josh's name just on that white part. Here, I've already pressed all of this for my daughters, and then look what I did. I added the eyes on the hat. I was like, oh no. So I actually just cut out white eyes and pressed over that. You can see the lines on it, so it's far from perfect, but I'm pretty sure my daughter won't care. Here's what it looks like in their toy room. It is so adorable. My daughter Quinn has been taking it off the chair and using it as a Santa bag and pretending to grab presents and be Santa. She is 6 years old. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was a long one. If you stuck through it the whole time, put a Christmas tree emoji in the comments. I'd also love to hear which project was your favorite and which projects you're working on this Christmas. If you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribed. It's completely free, and I have a few other Christmas videos coming up next.